Hi there, welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Thanks so much for clicking. To my returning subscribers, thank you for your continuous love and support. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please feel at home. Have you had an opportunity to subscribe to the channel yet? If not, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, hit subscribe. It's free, I promise. And please don't forget to like and share. As I was doing my research into the different political parties in South Africa to understand and educate myself, I came across a video and I was shocked. It was the BBC journalist that I covered in my previous video where he interviewed Julius Malema, but this time he was interviewing the Secretary General of the ANC. I was shocked. It was like a completely different journalist.
Fikile and Mbalula, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you for having us and welcome to Lutulia House.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
He had a different style in this particular interview, and I thought it would be really beneficial for us to sit down and compare the two styles and come together and analyze to see why this was. When he was interviewing the Secretary General, he was definitely to the point, and as I would say, this BBC reporter is definitely looking to get the facts, get the information, a hard-hitting journalist. We'll call him an investigative journalist.
How disappointed are you with the state South Africa is in today?
South Africa is undergoing challenges like many other countries, but I think to put us into a category of a failed state, it's an exaggeration. I can give...
You think that's a conversation that South Africans are having amongst themselves?
He was asking some hard questions of the Secretary General. This time he was prepared. He had stats and examples of current issues instead of coming back to the 15 years ago when he was interviewing Julius Malema.
The basic point that the South African people are interested in is who is on the take, who is corrupt inside the government. And what we know, not from Mr. De Ruyter, but what we know from the Zondo Commission, which has been painstakingly looking at this so-called state capture, where money that should go to help the people of this country build a better country is being siphoned off by criminals and their partners in government. What we know is that 14 billion rand of Eskom contracts went to state capture, to criminality. We know that 41 billion rand was looted from Transnet, the main transport state-owned enterprise, by state capture. This is not for discussion. The Zondo Commission has investigated, and that's what it found.
Who established the Zondo Commission?
But the reality is that if you are a young South African reaching adulthood today, you only have a 1 in 2 chance of actually finding a job. 50% of young people are out of work. A state should be able to provide work for its people, should ensure that the economy functions. We have a South Africa today where 60% of your people are living under the poverty line.
He was asking hard questions about corruption as well as load shedding. He used specific examples, and when the ANC Secretary General would respond, if he wasn't satisfied with the answer, he would follow up with a statistic, a fact, or an example. He did this in a very conservative and professional manner.
Yes, nothing like it is here, though. And Mr. Secretary General, we have to face one simple fact. Your party, the ANC, has been in power for 29 years, and you quite literally cannot even keep the lights on in this country today.
We have been in power for less than 30 years. And in that...
3 decades, and you can't keep the lights on.
From 300 years of deprivation and a mismanaged country and the economy, we have been able to cushion our people from the West in these 30 years, and we still regard ourselves a young democracy. I can tell you, for an example, we have connected more of our people to the grid like never before, and small businesses in this country. where even people in the deep rural have never had an opportunity to have a taste of what is it to live with an electricity.
But what they are living with today across
It's
this
a load
country...
shedding that we are going to crash and defeat.
Yes, you call it load shedding. It basically means the power is out. Where we are sitting in headquarters right now, the power was out until literally 5 minutes ago. It's going to go out again late this afternoon for another 2.5 hours. People in your country are going to go home from work tonight. They're going to sit in their homes and they are going to sit in candlelight with no power. Are you not ashamed that after 3 decades in power, controlling Eskom, the power company, which is a state-owned enterprise, are you not ashamed that this is the reality?
Can I explain to you? The problem of South Africa's load shedding is a challenge of demand and supply. We did so much for this country, connecting businesses and our people to the power grid, and we did not balance that with infrastructure development.
Yeah, the former President Thabo Mbeki has said that for years and years and years, Eskom, which is a state-owned enterprise, told the ANC government that without massive investment in the energy sector, they would not be able to provide enough power for this country. At the time, Mbeki says the ANC refused to listen. He said recently, Eskom was right, we in the ANC were wrong. You have to own this crisis. It's costing you, according to your Reserve Bank, it's costing you at least 2% of GDP.
Absolutely.
You can't afford that.
We can't afford that, and that is why we are focused in terms of dealing with it. It is an Achilles heel, and I can't tell you tonight or any time that this is an easy matter for our government.
I was like, wow, this is completely different than when he interviewed Julius, because it was as if he was provoking Julius. But in this interview, he was definitely calm, cool, and collective. He was hitting hard, asking the hard questions. But he didn't like when the ANC Secretary General came back and questioned him. You could see him getting a little bit uncomfortable and raise his voice just a little. Whereas where he was talking with Julius Malema in his interview, he was aggressive and assertive the entire time, raising his voice continuously, especially when he didn't like what Julius had to say.
How many crimes have your country committed in Iraq? How many crimes have everyone else who's so vocal today committed in Iraq and Afghanistan? Have you arrested them? You
know the impact that this stand of yours...
You're making a lot of noise about putting in state of working for peace between Ukraine and Russia, and you failed to resolve the war. Where are the weapons of mass destruction? Tony Blair went to Iraq and claimed that they are weapons of mass destruction. Did you see anybody standing against that in the United Kingdom and Britain? More than millions of people have died in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there are no weapons of mass destruction. We know what the war is about.
Mr. Secretary General,
between Russia and Ukraine. We want peace. That's what is important, so that the world can thrive. And organs and institutions of the world that institute world peace must not be conspicuous by their silence in deciding decisively.
We don't have much time left. I want to bring it back to domestic South African politics before we end.
Now, as I mentioned, interviewing politicians is never easy because they tend to go off topic. And the Secretary General definitely kept that going, especially when he was trying to sidestep some of the issues.
Yeah, you say this is all being addressed. South Africans would only wish that were true. The acting CEO of Eskom said the risk of stage 8 outages this winter is extremely high unless things change. And right now, they don't look as though they're going to change. Mr. Secretary General, you're not being straight with the South African people. You said just hours ago that this problem will be solved by the end of the year. There is not one person inside Eskom, inside the energy sector, who believes that to be true. Indeed, the chair of Eskom said just a few months ago, this will continue for the next 2 years.
We have given government and all our ministers that not even before end of the year, everything must be done to do away with load shedding.
But what I realized is, despite the BBC broadcaster being very specific and using examples, he also, when he got to the topic again of Russia, the bias came through.
For outside investors, they look at the foreign policy, diplomatic orientation of South Africa. They see that right now you are locked in a tense dispute with the United States because the US sees you as deeply sympathetic to Vladimir Putin's Russia, despite the Russian all-out invasion of Ukraine.
We have explained those issues. Our government is dealing with those matters with the United States of America. We are not locked in any dispute of any form. And we are non-aligned when it comes to the conflict in Russia. And that is the line we're pursuing.
Well, the US ambassador here in South Africa said that he had evidence that weapons had been loaded onto a Russian...
I met with him yesterday. He apologized for being overzealous and saying things that he shouldn't have said.
Yeah, you say he's apologized. We have not heard him himself issue an apology.
Well, I am saying to you, he have apologized. I met him right here in the Revolutionary House yesterday.
Your government has launched an investigation about that alleged weapons shipment.
It is correct.
Can you categorically guarantee to me here and now, as the head of the ANC, that no weapons were put on board that vessel?
Our government has reassured the ANC that there is nothing to the truth about weapons being exchanged between our country.
I phrased my question carefully. Can you now categorically say no weapons were put on board that Russian ship?
I've explained to you that there is a action that has been taken by our government in terms of investigating.
So it didn't matter if it was Julius or the Secretary General. In this case, it was a topic. You could tell he had a particular point of view, a particular perspective he wanted to get across when he talked about the relationship between South Africa and Russia. He questioned the analysis and thought process of the South African government, the ANC specifically. He wanted to know why they were not going to have Putin arrested if he came to South Africa. He was asking these hard questions, but in a very passionate way where you knew that he just didn't agree with the perspective. He did this with Julius as well, when he was asking him about the Russia relationship with the EFF and South Africa.
South Africa is a treaty member of the International Criminal Court. If Putin comes here in August as planned, your government will be obliged to arrest him. As head of the ANC, do you believe your government should and indeed will arrest Vladimir Putin?
If it was according to the ANC, we will want President Putin to be here even tomorrow.
You would?
To come to our country. But
you would welcome Vladimir Putin here right now?
Of course, we will welcome.
A man who is being investigated for war crimes by the International Criminal Court.
We will welcome him to come here as part and parcel of BRICS, but we know that we are constrained by the ICC in terms of doing that. Putin is a head of state. Do you think that a head of state can just be arrested anywhere?
What I found interesting, though, is despite the bias of the broadcaster coming through in both areas of Russia, when he went off that topic and went back to talking about domestic topics, he calmed down again. That calmness in his voice returned, and he went again asking assertive questions to the Secretary General of the ANC. But when the topic of the coalition between EFF and ANC came up, again, the spike in the attitude, you could see he was not impressed.
In the 2024 election, it is highly likely you will not win a parliamentary majority. You're probably, if you can rule at all, going to have to rule by coalition. Are you looking at Julius Malema's economic freedom fighters as a partner for the ANC after 2024?
I've been heading ANC elections now for over a decade. I've never gone to an election where the polls have been positive about the incumbent.
And he was hitting harder and harder, wanting to get the answers he was expecting. In fact, the ANC Secretary General called him out on how he was trying to taint or direct his responses.
And just one more question about Malema. His manifesto commitments are quite clear. He'll tell South Africans if they vote for him, he's going to confiscate land without compensation. He's going to nationalize key industries, including the mines and the banks. If you are to do a deal with Malema, you will have to consider whether you're prepared to take on his program.
We don't have dealings with anybody, and we don't looking at deals in 2024. We are working very hard for our people because we draw our mandate from our people. The dealings with anybody have not worked in terms of the local government elections and the coalitions, and that is why we have adopted a framework that must guide us. Most of the coalitions in this country have collapsed, and that is why as the ANC, we have been working with the framework of stabilizing the coalitions in the hung municipalities. And South Africans can see for themselves that coalitions don't bear any fruit.
I guess there's one thing. No matter what kind of day the broadcaster of BBC is having, he can definitely hold his own, ask hard questions in a polite and professional manner when he's comfortable and feels respect for the person he's interviewing. I don't know if he necessarily has to agree with everything that the Secretary General of the ANC said, but definitely when you compare the two interviews with Julius Malema and the Secretary General of ANC, you could see he was definitely partial and more comfortable interviewing the Secretary General of ANC than he was with Julius Malema. This is where we have to be mindful as broadcasters not to let our personal opinions or thoughts or processes or even emotions or our agendas get in the way of conducting a professional interview. I will say though, I am impressed that I now know this BBC reporter has it in him to do professional interviews. Perhaps it's only with certain sector. That's another topic, we'll talk another day. What are your thoughts when you compare these two? Do you see the bias? Do you see how he could be hard-hitting and professional or hard-hitting and non-objective? Love to hear your comments, drop them below. And please do me a favor, hit that notification button. That way you'll be notified each and every time I upload some new content. Let's have a discussion, let's analyze, and let's discuss. You don't have to agree or disagree, or you may not want to talk about politics at all. Whatever you choose. I'd love to hear your thoughts and topics. Let's chat. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.